Welcome back to Starting Point. George Zimmerman telling his side of the story, excuse me, this morning for the cameras for the first time since the night that he shot and killed Trayvon Martin. He was on Fox News last night, and Zimmerman said that there was nothing that he would do differently that night. Listen.
Do you regret getting out of the car to follow Trayvon that night?
No, sir.
Do you regret that you had a gun that night?
No, sir.
Do you feel you wouldn't be here for this interview if you didn't have that gun?
No, sir.
You feel you would not be here?
I feel that it was all God's plan, and for me to second guess it or judge it.
Is there anything you might do differently in retrospect now that time has passed a little bit?
No, sir.
Trayvon Martin's parents are Sabrina Fulton and Tracy Martin. They're joined this morning by their attorney, Ben Crump. It's nice to see all of you. Thanks for being with me. Sabrina, I'm going to start with you if I can. I know you had a chance to watch this interview. What did you think of what George Zimmerman was saying?
My first thought was that I wish that Trayvon was here to tell his side of the story, because we're just hearing one side of what actually happened.
Tracy, what do you think? I mean, he walked through numerous descriptions. He walked through, obviously, his side of the story of the pursuit, which he said he was not running after him. He walked through the struggle with the gun. If you could have asked him a question, what do you want to know? What would you like him to describe in more detail?
I just would like to know, why did he even get out the car? Why was my son so suspicious? What made him rush to judge my son and thinking that he was a criminal or pursuing a burglary?
The pursuit, I think, is going to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Crump, a big focus in this court case. Because, and Sean Hannity asked him a detailed question about the pursuing and was he running after Trayvon. Listen.
Maybe I said running, but he was more...
You said he's running?
Yes. He was like skipping and going away quickly, but he wasn't running out of fear.
You can tell the difference?
He wasn't running.
He wasn't actually running?
No, sir.
Okay, because that's what you said to the dispatcher. You thought he was running. Let me ask you this. At that point, we can hear the unbuckling of the seatbelt, hear you opening the car door, and this dispatch asked you at that point, and this became a very key moment that everyone in the media focused on, and the dispatcher asked you, are you following him? And you said yes. Explain that.
I meant that I was going in the same direction as him to keep an eye on him so that I could tell the police where he was going. I didn't mean that I was actually pursuing him.
He said he was running, but says in this interview he wasn't running. He said yes to the dispatcher when he asked about following him, but now says I wasn't really following him. When you look at a strategy when this comes to the courtroom, in the courthouse, how do you plan on using this chunk of the interview?
Well, Soledad, the state attorney is going to see this interview as a gift when they get ready to cross-examine George Zimmerman. We have a term in the law called ipsa locular, which is Latin for the thing speaks for itself. Just objective evidence. Use your own ears. America can listen to those 911 tapes on their own, and they hear him pursuing Trayvon. They hear the wind whistling, and they hear him say that he's following Trayvon Martin. Pursuit is so crucial in this case because it kills his stand your ground defense. He profiled, confronted, and shot Trayvon Martin in the heart and said he doesn't regret anything.
Yeah, and you heard from Mark O'Mara, the attorney, I think saying a similar thing that you're saying, which is, the stand your ground defense might be something he's not focusing on, and it'll actually probably be self-defense. How do you think that changes this case?
Well, remember, we believe the reason George Zimmerman, at 1 hour after he killed Trayvon Martin, had to write in that statement he was looking for street signs because he can't say he pursued Trayvon and then say stand your ground. And remember, Soledad, this is so important for America to remember. We heard that 911 tape. I don't think he realized that we were going to hear that tape, or he wouldn't have put that the only reason he got out the car was to check the street sign, because we heard he say, oh, and he said an explicit word, he's getting away. And then you hear the wind whistling, and that's when he says he's following. It speaks for itself.
The lawyer stepped in, as I would imagine any lawyer would, when the questions turned to money and the accounts that George Zimmerman had access to. Is this going to be a side issue and relatively irrelevant in the trial?
Well, I think George Zimmerman's credibility is at issue, and everybody in America, like the judge has said, his credibility is completely in question. And it goes back to what Mr. Martin has said all along. He did not have to get out that car. If he would have stood down, he wouldn't have to claim stand your ground at all.
In the clip coming in, I played you a little bit of what George Zimmerman said to Sean Hannity when he was asked, did he regret anything? And part of what he said was, it was God's will. I'm curious, Sabrina, what that's like to hear.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous. God did not have a plan for Trayvon to die and for George Zimmerman to shoot Trayvon for no reason.
There's a question that was a question that, well, I guess he took another stab at, if you will, at the end of the interview. Excuse me. And he told Sean Hannity he wanted to readdress that question. I want to play a little chunk of that.
I'd like to readdress your question when you asked if I would have done anything differently. When you asked that, I thought you were referring to if I would not have talked to the police, if I would have maybe got an attorney, if I wouldn't have taken the CBSA, and that I stand by. I would not have done anything differently. But I do wish that there was something, anything I could have done that wouldn't have put me in the position where I had to take his life.
So two things I note there. One is you can read through the transcripts and see they never were talking about talking to the police or getting an attorney, so that was not part of the conversation where he says he sort of misunderstood the question. But he says, anything I could have done that wouldn't have put me in the position where I had to take his life. This to me, Ben, sounds like posturing for the trial, yes?
It does, and it's as Mr. Martin has said over and over again. He made a rush to judgment to judge Trayvon as a criminal or suspicious, and he got out that car. He put Trayvon in the position. Trayvon went to his grave not knowing who this strange man was who confronted him. And so he cannot pursue and pick a fight and then say, oh, he put me in this position. And it's going to be very critical. There are so many inconsistencies, Soledad, that George Zimmerman has told we don't even have enough time in your show to go through all the inconsistencies.
Tracy, I'm going to ask you the last question if I can. He says that he would be willing to talk to you and to Sabrina as well. Would you have any interest in that at all?
Absolutely not. Not at this time. We're talking about a man who regrets the fact that he took our child's life. My conversation for him will be very limited.
Ben Crump joining us this morning, and Sabrina Fulton and Tracy Martin, the parents of Trayvon Martin and their attorney. Thanks. I appreciate you joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So ahead on